Hello and welcome to the second KIRO Traffic Town Hall. My name is Tracy Taylor. I'll be your moderator for the show today. A lot to talk about when it comes to tolling, transit, and traffic, and that's why we've invited some of the region's top experts when it comes to tolling, traffic, and transit. Kate Chambers from King County Metro, David Jackson from Sound Transit, along with Heather Marks from Seattle DOT. We also have Patty Rubstello from WSDOT. Chris Sullivan is here to help me facilitate this fun town hall where we're getting answers to your questions. Thanks for watching. And welcome to the second Traffic Town Hall here at KIRO Radio. I'm Tracy Taylor, and a full panel of people who are here to talk about a lot of things across the board. Of course, top of mind is tolling in the new Highway 99 tunnel. We're going to talk about transit. We're also going to talk about I-976 because that seems to be top of mind. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to introduce you to our panelists involved. To my right is Heather Marks from Seattle DOT, and we're going to talk with Or no, we're going to go to Sully. Sully's over there. He's there, but he's not Heather Marks. And then next to Sully is Katie Chalmers from King County Metro. And then to Katie's side, we've got Rick Johnson from the Washington State Patrol. Then Patty Rubstello from WSDOT. She's here to talk about tolling, but we like to look at Sully too, and his name is Patty. There we go. In the green sweater is David Jackson from Sound Transit, and yes, to my right is Heather Marks from Seattle DOT. So we're going to dip right into what everybody is talking about right now. Of course, with the elections on Tuesday, I-976 essentially passed. So there was a lot of misconception when it comes to where the money goes. At least that's what we're hearing from our listeners. So now that we're losing this money, I'm going to give each of you a chance to kind of really explain what this means to your agency. So I'll start with you, Heather. What does this mean for SDOT?
Well, the money that's impacted by 976 goes to fund transit service. So we have a partnership with King County Metro. If fully implemented, I-976 is going to create the conditions under which we have to cut more than 100,000 service hours. In addition, it funds bus passes for high school students. So we're going to have to cut 15,000 bus passes for high school students, as well as 1,500 bus passes for low-income folks. Maybe more importantly, it also funds some really basic maintenance like pothole filling. Mm-hmm. And so if that funding goes away, we are going to see some really serious impacts to transportation here in the city of Seattle. And I'll be candid, during the Seattle squeeze, it's going to make things a lot worse.
That's what we essentially thought. Sully and I had a conversation about this, wondering exactly what this meant. So David, for Sound Transit, this means possibly a lot of projects put on hold. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, right now we're doing some more analysis to try and figure out exactly what it means to the agency. Our board of directors on November 21st will hear from staff, and then we'll make a decision about how we proceed.
Okay.
But right now, we're just looking at it more strongly.
All right. Patty, what does this mean for your agency?
Sure. So for this biennium, it's about a $450 million funding gap that we now have. And as you've seen, the governor's come out and directed WSDOT to not put any more construction projects, capacity projects out for bid, so that we can have some capacity for the legislature really to work with as they make decisions with the governor on how to address it. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're at right now. To be clear that we will continue to put projects out that are that are safety oriented, preservation, because that's really important, and then also our fish passage projects, because we still have that court injunction we need to fulfill.
So I want to jump in here because when the No campaign was hit heavy and hard on this one, it really put out that I don't even want to say this, but more of a scare tactic. But it's all reality when it comes to our bridges and overpasses and the damage and the repair work that has to be done on that. So does that mean those projects are going to be put on hold too?
No, those projects we're not putting on hold. It's really the new capacity projects, and you're right, we're already underfunded for maintenance and preservation, and so we got to do everything we can to keep our infrastructure safe.
Okay. Rick, I-976 for you? No?
Well, that would be a response that would come out of our headquarters in Olympia
Okay.
and our government and media relations.
Okay. And Katie, I know that means cutting or possibly reduction in some bus routes too, like 51 bus routes. Can you elaborate on that?
Metro has seen or anticipates impacts of $150 million or more through funding that the state and the city provide to Metro. And right now that funds a lot of things, but service, as Heather mentioned, is a really big part of that. Without that revenue, cuts to bus service and cuts to other Metro services and projects are a real possibility. Our policymakers, the King County Executive has announced that the county will be pursuing potential legal challenges. So at this point, a lot is still in play, and we don't know exactly what those impacts will look like. But as Heather mentioned, they could be service cuts for people.
So basically, in a nutshell, all of your agencies right now are really kind of scrambling and trying to get things figured out. And by the 21st, you'll have a better idea of moving forward what you're going to do. Okay. Sully, did you want to jump in?
I want to ask Patty, just for clarification purposes, we look at the big funding WSDOT package of 2015 and the gas tax increase and things. I've had a lot of listeners go, well, those projects are funded, and without talking specifics, how do you break down, what was there versus what could be cut? I mean, you guys going to have to go through different things and go, yay, nay, can't do that one. I mean, is it really going to come down to stuff like that?
Well, that's the exercise we're going through right now, is going through all those projects and determining which ones need to be put on hold, and then which are those priority projects we need to keep pushing forward on.
So there's still a lot of questions to be heard and answered when it comes to I-976, and we're going to find that out through the next couple of weeks. But what's coming up real fast is tolling in the Highway 99 tunnel. And a lot of people are like, whew, we thought we had months. We thought we had time, to get prepared for tolling. And a lot of questions come in about tolling passes. And it seems like I field a lot more of those of wondering, okay, I have a sticker pass. Does that mean I can use 405 with a sticker pass? Or how does this essentially work? So, Patty, can you explain, one, the flex pass, the sticker pass, and how they're working for each roadway, like 520, 405, and 167.
Yeah, so first of all of our passes work on all of our toll facilities. So if you already have one, you're already set up, as we say, good to go to be in the tunnel and pay that toll. The unique one that we have is our Flex Pass, and the Flex Pass, again, works on all toll facilities, but this is what you need if you want to carpool on 167 or 405. You need this one because this is the one that you switch over and can declare yourself as a carpooler. So that's the only one that's got its unique characteristics from that standpoint. But again, all of them, our sticker pass, our motorcycle pass, our plate pass, all of them work on all toll facilities.
So I have a question here from Tim Clifton. He says, Trace, I have a good-to-go transponder mounted on my front license plate issued by a good-to-go office at the Narrows Bridge. Will this qualify for the good-to-go and the reduced tunnel fare?
Yes, so this is the plate pass. You mount it on your license plate, and this one does work on, again, all of our facilities. So he's set up for 99 tolling.
So I would be not right to say for Sounders fans, we're not only tolling starting on Saturday morning at 5 a.m., we have a huge match Sunday at CenturyLink Field for the Sounders match. So drivers, one, should get that good to go pass almost now.
That's the cheapest way you can travel through the tunnel. You save $2. So definitely, if you're going to use the tunnel, get a good to go pass, get it set up on your account, and also make sure you install it. That's important too.
And Patty, can you just go through briefly the activation process? Because I know when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you're like, only 35% or so of the people that are going through the tunnel today, well, they may have a sticker pass, but it's not activated. So where are we on that? And is that kind of a big concern? And it's really not that difficult to activate your pass, is it?
Right. It's very easy. You can just go right online and add it to your account. If you don't have an account, again, online, you can get it all set up and activated. But as I mentioned, you got to get it in the windshield. So we're still in that 40% range. So we really need that to move up. But similar to what we saw with 520, people tend to wait till the last minute. But we really want to encourage people to take the moment now and get those installed.
Patty, another question has just come in from Jillian. She says, will tolls last indefinitely or will they expire at some point?
So the way the legislation is for 99 Tunnel is that they are there until the legislature tells us to stop. A key thing to note, we're funding $200 million of the construction of the tunnel. But in addition, it's the operation and maintenance of that tunnel, and that's going to continue on in perpetuity as long as that tunnel's there. So that revenue will be funding those sorts of things in the future.
Okay. Another question that's just come in from mynorthwest.com is, if you have a good to go pass, how do you technically save $2?
Well, you save $2 because you're not getting a bill in the mail. So if you don't have an account and if you don't have your good to go pass, it is $2 to get that bill in the mail. So it doesn't take too many trips on one of the toll facilities to really make it cost beneficial to go ahead and get one of those passes.
So I did the math and I did the breakdown. And if you watched KIRO 7, our news partners in the morning, my trip, now mind you, I am completely far from the left. I'm not a normal traveler. I'm in my car more often than not, 4 times into the city a day. Once in the morning, once going home after my morning show, once coming back in the afternoon to be here at KIRO Radio, and then again going home. Roughly my tolls per day are $5 with my good to go pass. If I pay by mail, I pay $13 a day in tolls. Because of that, $3.25, $3.50, depending on the time of day. Now, per week, it starts to add up. So why the hesitation on getting the good to go pass?
That's a great question, and I don't really have a good answer for it other than to say that, after 3 trips, you've paid for one of these sticker passes. They're only $5.
Yeah.
And so that's why we say, this is the cheapest way to travel, and, you don't have to worry about that. The inconvenience of getting that bill in the mail and remembering to pay for it, just be set up and get that cheaper toll.
Sully, do you want to jump in?
Well, I was going to go. I'm not sure if we want to go right into, I guess, the practical applications of the people who don't want to pay that $2 or $3 if they don't want a good to go pass. And the big concern going forward, I think, for most of our listeners is, okay, if you're not going to pay that, where are people going to go and how are we going to handle that and what are we going to be looking for as we move forward? And I think a good place to start with that is to discuss our history and kind of go through 520 and what we saw when that went active, what the drivers did or didn't do and how they came back or whatever. Just kind of give us a history lesson from 520's perspective moving forward into what you expect in the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. When we started tolling 520, people did try different routes. They went to 522, they went to I-90, they went to buses, and people tried different paths. And really, it took about 6 to 9 months for people to really settle into a new form of commuting, and we do expect to see that with the tunnel. We expect people to try different things out, so it's patience that people need to have, but also it's a great opportunity, again, to try other modes in getting to where you want to go.
What kind of diversion rate did we see? If you could kind of break down, because it was close to 35% early on, and we've come back about half since then. Kind of take us through what we saw in terms of the numbers you have.
Yeah, we were about 105,000 trips a day, and it dropped down to about 70,000, and we're back up to about 85,000. So, and that's right within how we were forecasting the numbers. And, again, back to a lot of those people went to transit, a lot of people went to other modes, and some people chose not to make those trips anymore.
So I'm going to jump in here with a question that just came in from Kathleen on mynorthwest.com, and she says, I plan on avoiding the tunnel altogether. What can we expect traffic to be like through the side streets through the downtown corridor? So I'll let Heather take this one.
We are prepared for the eventuality of a certain percentage of folks to travel through downtown. I want to emphasize, though, that if you are traveling through downtown Seattle, the tunnel is always going to be your best route. Our streets, as folks know, are at capacity. And so it is not worth, in my estimation, it's not worth your time to try to make your way through downtown on surface streets. And we just really want to encourage folks to use the tunnel. It's a fantastic facility. and well worth your $1.25.
So now that we're talking about diversion, we're going to see a lot of people kind of stray away from using Highway 99, possibly get onto Seattle surface streets. But this also means a lot of push onto the I-5 corridor. And so this is where I'm going to ask Rick Johnson from Washington State Patrol, what are you guys doing to prepare for more pressure on the I-5 corridor?
Well, I know our command staff has been to meetings with WSDOT, SDOT, and what they're trying to address. Okay, I think they even did a tabletop. Just okay, what if then kind of things. When the viaduct was shut down, we were expecting I-5 to take a brunt. It wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. There's already so many cars through the area. I mean, it seems like stop and go most of the time. But I think the right people are in place and communicating, and I think 2 phone calls a day once the tolling starts to see what kind of impact it's having on I-5, and really it could even impact 405. I mean, if somebody's going, they're going to go.
Okay, go ahead. I know Patty and Heather both were like, oh, I want to talk here. Patty.
Well, I wanted to add that we are adding some incident response teams in addition to what we normally have out there. So if there are situations that pop up, that we can get out there and take care of those as quickly as we can. The other thing is we have an extremely intensive monitoring program that we've worked with our partners on to collect a lot of data. So we're going to know what's happening on all the different major facilities, and I think the city is set up to respond when they can, and we're going to respond when we can if we need to make tweaks to the system.
Okay.
And that's just right, Patty. And the other thing I'd like to mention is when the viaduct came down, we found that so many people just took our advice and changed up their commute a little bit. They took the bus, they rode their bike, they changed up their commute times. Maybe they worked from a remote location. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it wasn't so bad when we closed the viaduct forever. We just hope that everyone does that exact same thing for the purposes of tolling. We also are going to have 5 extra emergency response teams out on the street to make sure that we can clear incidents as quickly as possible. But again, the tunnel is still the best way.
Heather, if you could talk, we've talked about the finger on the button. You're ready to roll, but in a good way, that if things go a certain way, you can press a button there at your traffic control center. What things will go into activation once you guys put that plan in place?
Well, that's probably our signal engineers wouldn't be super excited about that characterization. However, we do have pre-developed signal timing patterns that we can deploy at a moment's notice. So we are going to continue to monitor traffic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as we see issues develop in the grid, we will absolutely be prepared to press the button so that those additional traffic timing plans can go into effect.
And that will also include uniformed officers, if necessary, at some pretty key intersections that will also help Katie here at Metro to kind of make sure that we're moving as much as we can, right?
That's exactly right. We worked closely with King County Metro and our friends at the Seattle Police Department to identify some locations where we're going to have uniformed police officers available to make sure folks are not blocking the box, which is illegal, and you shouldn't do it even when there isn't a police officer there, and also make sure that folks are not using the marked bus lanes that are really only there for buses to use.
See, now that comes up with another question that we've heard from listeners saying, you know what, you guys say it time and time again, yeah, SPD is going to ticket you, but they have yet to see the enforcement happen. So is this really going to be happening, or is this just, well, we're going to say it and we're going to scare people?
No, we're not trying to scare people. It's just the truth. And I'm so pleased that certain people haven't experienced the joy of a ticket for violating the box or for violating the transit lane. But I assure you that the police department does issue those citations, and that's not the kind of risk I want to take.
Yeah, truly.
It's also kind of hard to to enforce in terms of we've talked about this in the past and Rick, we've talked about this on the freeways, is by pulling someone over, you're probably taking a lane anyway, and then you cause more of a backup. So it's hard to issue tickets and do things like that, even though you're out there actively enforcing.
You know, I think that's right. But I also just want to note that, and it's something that I say a lot, your commute is a community activity. And we all have to take responsibility for our own transportation choices. And if you choose to drive your car by yourself into downtown Seattle, that is indeed your choice. But there are some responsibilities that come along with that. And part of that is making sure that you're not blocking the box and holding up the grid, and that you're not using transit lanes for your own purpose, because those really are to help move buses, which is the way that most people move to and through downtown.
Okay, so we're going to take a 1-minute timeout. We're going to regroup. I have several questions lined up for Kate and Dave from King County Metro and Sound Transit, not only about tolling, but an upcoming light rail shutdown that's going to happen in January. So we'll be back just after this minute break. Well, thank you for watching and being a part of our second KIRO Traffic Town Hall. I'm Tracy Taylor, and if you missed any part of the first half of this town hall, don't worry. We're going to have everything recapped on Candy, Mike, and Todd today at 3 o'clock. And you can go back and watch the first part, or better yet, you can watch the whole thing in its entirety at our YouTube page. So if you want to go to YouTube, go to KIRO Radio. It's going to be all right there for you. Of course, we're going to recap everything on mynorthwest.com as well. But stick around. We still have more KIRO Traffic Town Hall to go. Welcome back to the second KIRO Radio Traffic Town Hall. I am your host and moderator, Tracy Taylor, joined by all of the region's top officials when it comes to traffic, transit, and tolling. So we're going to dive right back into a little bit of tolling, because it seems to be top of mind for everybody involved if you travel in and out of the downtown corridor. So we're going to start with Katie. Say your last name, Chalmers, right?
Chalmers.
Chalmers, from King County Metro. So there's a lot of questions that come in from listeners saying, so how can riders be assured when tolling starts that they're still going to get to their destination with as little interruption as possible?
That's a great question, and customers are always really top of mind for us at Metro. Really, in the coming weeks as tolling starts, we know that things might be unpredictable, but we're really committed to delivering the best possible service and experience for riders. So there's a few things that we're doing, and then there's some other things that riders can do. So on our part, we're going to be daily working with our partners at the City of Seattle and WSDOT to make sure that where we're seeing issues, maybe where bus drivers or customers are reporting issues, we're feeding that information over to our partners to be able to respond as much as we can in real time. So that's our bus drivers are out on the street every day. It's a great set of eyes to help feed in extra information. At the same time, we're asking customers to look at all your options and be extra familiar with the different ways you travel. Maybe look at taking an earlier trip or a later trip, flexing your schedule to avoid some of the most congested times. But I do want people to know that many of our trips are crowded, but we still have a lot of room for more people. If you are looking at the toll and maybe that's just not going to quite fit in your budget, if many people have an Orca card, try that Orca card out for your commute, and we hope that as tolling begins, maybe some more people will discover that Metro works for them. We've added service in September through partnership with the City of Seattle. We've been adding service for several years, so we really encourage people, if you're on Metro, sign up for rider alerts. Make sure you get as much real-time information as you can. And then if you are driving normally for a commute, maybe check out Metro. Things have changed and we've been able to do things differently. So we think a combination of us being prepared. We've done this before. We've There's been a lot of disruptions in the past. This is one more. So I think we're all very aware of it and we're prepared, but we also want our riders to do their best to be prepared as well.
So David, I'm going to ask you the same question. So how can riders be assured there's going to be a little interruption as possible coming from Sound Transit with sounder trains, light rail, buses?
We'll be operating our normal schedule. Sorry.
It's okay.
We'll be operating our normal schedule. We anticipate that customers will have to be patient and pay attention to alerts and whatnot, but I'm anticipating a strong service from us.
Okay. So let's get into a little bit more about something that we have heard a lot about is the shutdown of light rail coming in January. Now explain the project and why this is happening and the length of time that it's going to be shut down.
Okay. The project we're calling it Connect 2020. It's the construction project that will connect the rails from the east side light rail into the main light rail that's operating today. It'll begin in early January and last for 10 weeks. During that time, customers should expect crowded conditions and slower intervals between trains. Essentially, the system will operate as two systems. There'll be University of Washington to Pioneer Square and Pioneer Square to Angle Lake. At Pioneer Square, if you're passing through downtown, you must change trains there.
Okay.
For that reason, we're also going to eliminate bicycles from Pioneer Square Station. If you come on the train with a bicycle, you must get off beforehand. But that's just for safety.
Sure. So would that mean, is Sound Transit providing like shuttle buses then if they have to get off at Pioneer Square, or how does that
There
work?
will be three weekend closures, just like we recently experienced in January, February, and March.
Okay.
We do not have the dates yet. They're determined by construction progress.
Okay.
If you could, David, also just kind of talk about the way you've kind of uniquely set up the way you're going to transition, because if you want to go from Angle Lake to the U District, you'll be able to do it on a train, but you just have to get off one train, walk across the new platform you've built, and then get on the other train and keep heading north. So kind of go through that, because I mean, it's not like you have to get off and jump on a shuttle. You just have to get out and walk a little bit.
No, the October's system closures on the weekends were to build that temporary platform in the middle of Pioneer Square, so people will change across that from a northbound train to another northbound train. And we're going to be working very diligently to make sure that those are very coordinated.
Can I note that because of our partnership, one of the things that the City of Seattle has done is we're just about finished with a bike facility that you'll be able to use between the University Street Station and the Chinatown International District Station. So even if you're not allowed to bring your bicycle on the train, you will have a separated facility that you can use through downtown.
Just one more before we move on. I want to ask Katie again, just to go back a little bit about what you've experienced, not that because Heather lives in West Seattle that we're talking about West Seattle, but West Seattle bus riders have experienced they've taken some hardship over since we've even without tolling. What is your word to the folks in West Seattle about those reliable trips, especially getting out in the afternoon now that we have the facility being tolled?
I think first, we're glad that people are trying transit, but we definitely recognize that the past several months since the viaduct came down has been really challenging. We've had a lot of days where people had really a lot of trouble getting reliable bus service out of the city. So we've made changes, and it has improved for riders. I think this is a place where buses get stuck in traffic just like cars do. And so we work really closely with our partners to try and keep things moving as well as possible. We have many more places with transit lanes and transit priority than we did in the past. But we really are going to be watching closely for all those routes, including the West Seattle routes, to try and keep them moving as much as possible. And I'll also say that those routes will change again. Alaskan Way will open. Metro will begin using Alaskan Way. So West Seattle riders from Burien as well, and those communities have experienced a lot of change, and we definitely recognize that. We're doing our best to get the word out, and things will stabilize as we move to our permanent pathways, and we think that that'll be a much better experience in the long run for our riders, and hope that it'll be an experience that more people will want to get on board Metro.
So I'm concerned more so now that the diversion, especially when it comes to tolling, we saw it so much with 520 and 405, and I know that we briefly touched on that a little while ago, but I'm more concerned now about like the how should I put this? The what did they call it? Rick, what did you guys call it? It was the campaign you did, the steer it and clear it. Yeah. Are you guys still really enforcing that, especially now that we're going to see more pressure on I-5 when people are start to do that diversion?
Well, our goal is to keep traffic moving, and I know that Metro has to change routes sometimes because of what happens on the freeways.
Sure.
You know, first of all, the incident response trucks that the Department of Transportation provides are a lifesaver for us, just because they can get to things and they have tow and push capabilities, so we can clear. Because there's data out there every minute a lane shut down, it creates so much backup.
Right.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but as far as we want people to understand, if your car's drivable, we need you on the shoulder, because it's not safe, number one, to be in the road. Don't get out of your car if it's movable. There's a misnomer that they have to leave the cars exactly how they ended up so we can tell what happened. Well, after doing this for a few minutes in King County, the cars talk to you. So we tell, get them off the road. And if they're not drivable, stay in your car, let us know, and then IRT trucks will come, or we'll get there and remove you. If someone's injured, then of course we're not going to move them if they're too injured to move. So we want to get the lanes cleared, because there's a lot of humans in cars that are trying to get places, and it's even tougher sometimes for the buses, because there's some areas where we can't. I mean, where do you divert them to? This morning on State Route 104.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
There's not a whole lot we could have done. We had to push that eastbound traffic onto South I-5, and a lot of people didn't want to do that.
Right.
So
there's a lot of illegal U-turns happening out there on 104 this morning. Don't think I didn't see you. I'm just saying. Okay, there's a traffic question that came in. Actually, it's more of a tolling question. So, Patty, I'm going to direct this one at you. And it says, Trace, ask where the tolling money has been going for the last decade.
Well, it all depends on which facility. So each facility that we collect tolls on goes into a dedicated account for that facility. And depending on which one it is, like Tacoma Narrows Bridge, we're paying off the debt that we have for the bridge construction, as well as the maintenance and operations of the bridge, and of course the collection of the tolls. So it depends. Each facility has its own requirements that the legislature sets out for us. Specifically for 99, again, we're paying back a $200 million debt to the construction, as well as, again, maintenance and operations of that tunnel, preservation, and then the cost to collect the tolls.
So another question that's come in from Belinda on Facebook, and she says, how will the tolls affect transit on the Olympic Peninsula? Will that affect anything out there?
With the start of 99 tolling?
Well, she had said there's tolls affect transit. So will it affect transit on the Olympic Peninsula?
No, it won't. And actually, recently, our commission has changed their exemptions on Tacoma Narrows Bridge, and transit does go free now. They're not going to see any changes.
Okay. And then another question that's come in from Facebook from Hargrove says, are we looking to bring the administration and development of the tolling systems into the state to create more jobs?
It's currently not something we're looking at. We do leverage the private sector to do a lot of the work that goes into toll collection. So our back office systems, our call center staff, we do hire vendors to do that for us.
Okay. Sully and I, we should probably talk about the salmon for a brief moment, because you guys did
if you want to.
Yeah,
sure.
well, I mean, we were talking about it before this thing started. So the salmon was a big push that SDOT just pushed out not too long ago to flip your trip. So are you still, I know the salmon is taking a little time out for right now, but
Couldn't make it today, I understand.
He's kind of busy headed upstream, or she's busy headed upstream right now. So flipping the trip, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Sal's the gal, and we have a very cute and funny video that you can find through our website. We would like people to consider flipping their trip. So if it is normal for you to drive by yourself every day to and from work, we'd like you to see if you can try something else, maybe just one trip. So maybe you want to take advantage of King County Metro's wonderful transit service. Maybe you want to ride your bike. Maybe you want to carpool with a neighbor or a coworker. But that's what that campaign is about. We know that a lot of people have because of family reasons or where you live, the choices are more limited. But we find that if people have a goal of just flipping one trip, it becomes a lot easier. And once you do it once, like so many things, it becomes easier to do it more and more.
If you guys, all of you agencies, if you had an opportunity to talk to the employers that are watching this town hall right now, would you consider, like when we shut down 99 for the road work and the demolition of the viaduct, would you push out once again to some of these employers, hey, maybe let your employees work from home? Would you really, I mean, is that something that we want to continue on and not just for that one shutdown?
Absolutely. And in fact, we're working with our partners at Commute Seattle to speak with and get in touch with all of the larger employers downtown. And any employer, if there is a way that you can arrange your work so that your folks can come in a little before commute time or a little after commute time, maybe flex the schedule so that folks can work remotely a couple of times a week, that is really helpful. All the cars that don't come into downtown make traffic better for everyone that must come in. So if you have a choice, please use your choice.
I'd like to go through, I mean, each one of the agencies, if you guys can answer however. I know Tracy and I have been tracking the trends that we see every morning. And I think during that 3-week closure, we saw some very interesting trends, a lot of which have actually kind of continued.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the drive on I-5 in the morning northbound, the commute never really started backing up from South Center into downtown until about 6:30. Now it's at 5:30. So people seem to be doing different things. I'll ask each one of you, kind of whoever wants to go, what have you seen in terms of volumes or ridership that have changed a little bit and have kind of stuck with that 3 weeks to show that we can actually do this and it can work for us? So don't all jump at once,
Yes.
but Katie, you look ready to go.
I can jump in, and I think from our perspective, sometimes if you have never ridden the bus before, it can be intimidating. Like, I don't know where to pay my fare. How do I know that I'm at the right stop? So I totally agree with Heather in that just trying it once is enough for sometimes somebody to feel like, oh, I can do this. Like, this could work for me. Maybe not every day, but I can do it. And so after these big events, often we see new people who've tried transit who stay on board, which is really exciting if we think about trying to help people move around the city without having to drive everywhere. So we don't let a good opportunity go to waste. We really think these are important moments where King County Metro and other agencies can encourage and try and help people learn how to use something new and different. And for people who are already on board, continue doing what they're doing and keep service running as well as it can.
And I think for us, there's a lot of cars out there, and we're dealing with the things that are causing more of the backups. I love the altering the hours when you're coming in. I mean, not that the trooper's going to notice that because we're at a collision or something like that, typically during the rush hour times. So for us, we're trying to really push out the distracted driving, because most of the collisions out here are people being distracted.
Right.
I'm not blaming everything on cell phones, but whether it's what they're eating, drinking, it's just that's the crash happens, the rear end crashes. So right. If we can eliminate some of those, I think we can continue to keep the transit system and the traffic moving more smoothly.
Go ahead.
We have absolutely noticed a difference in traffic patterns, and we call it the peak spread. So instead of the peak being pretty clearly between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., we've noticed it creep out. So it starts a little earlier and ends a little later, and similar in the afternoon. So that's a good trend for us. The more we can spread traffic over the whole day, the better commutes become for everyone.
And I'll just add on as well. one of the focuses of Metro service ads over the past several years has been to add service during the midday, to add service later in the evening, so that as people try and move, maybe not in that really peak period, that the bus can still be available. We know we still have a ways to go. There's still places where, the frequency or the bus doesn't come as often in the middle of the day, but that has been a focus over the past several years, and as part of our where we want to be as a transit provider in this region, we know that people do need to travel throughout the day, so that's an area that we want to focus on as well.
Patty, did you want to add in on this one?
Well, I guess the only thing I would add is just the fact that this region is continuing to rapidly grow, and so the more that we can be doing to do these different shifts of commutes and stuff just helps everybody. And so just get out there and try something new and stick with it.
I always find that fourth quarter is the worst traffic that we deal with all year long, because it's that last push to get everything done before the holidays, and that's why we see those early morning commutes, and in the afternoon they stay later. I mean, I still see huge backups when I'm here at KIRO Radio every afternoon after 7 o'clock when I leave, and I'm like, that's so frustrating, but I understand. I mean, it is fourth quarter and everybody's making that push. So I have another question that's come in from our text line at 98973, and it says, does anyone else complain about the lack of signage to the southbound 99 tunnel around Mercer? It's extremely confusing since I work in South Lake Union.
So I can start. We worked real close with the city on the signing out there, and initially when the tunnel opened, we did hear some concerns about the signage, but that's really tapered down, and I think that's partly to do with the fact that anytime you introduce a new change in how people travel through an area, it's confusing, and I think with some time, people have gotten used to it, and again, back to we don't hear those complaints anymore.
Oh, that's good.
I think it's actually a really good point. Over the course of the next 5 years, we are going to have some really massive changes in the way people get where they're going. And so folks have to absolutely plan ahead, leave yourself a little extra time, and know that fundamentally the way that we are moving through the region is changing. We used to take the viaduct every single day to work, and now there's no viaduct, right? So there are some really fundamental changes that are happening. Certainly tolling is one of those. A lot of construction in and around 520. We're so excited for 2021 and light rail to open up to Northgate, and then 2023 opening up to the east side. So I just think that folks have to really engage with their transportation. You can't just sort of let it happen the way it's always happened,
Right.
because the changes are coming fast and furious.
Yeah, and the more the city grows, the more the changes to our transportation and the way that we get around the city continues as well. So I have another question that's come in, and this kind of reverts back to something. If you missed the top of this town hall, you can go back and rewatch it at mynorthwest.com, also on our Facebook and YouTube pages as well at KIRO Radio. We're going to touch, we talked a lot at the top about I-976, and there's a question that comes in from our KIRO text line at 98973 saying Governor Inslee announced that all has been postponed on upcoming WSDOT projects. So what does this mean for commuters?
So again, it's not all projects. It's projects that we're getting ready to go out for ad, and specifically focusing on those capital capacity projects. So we're still doing our safety and our preservation projects. I think it's too soon to know. I mean, we're really, right now the focus is working with the governors and the legislature on what steps do they want to take to fill that funding gap. And we won't know until the legislative session ends and we know what they've done.
Sully?
I just, I know, I want to go back to just get your overall impressions of how ready you are and what your biggest concern is. I know, Heather, I've asked you several times how well you sleep, and you told me you sleep great because you said you're ready to roll. But what is each one of your agency's biggest concern as we head into tolling? I mean, what are you going, not really sure what the driver's going to do. I'm not really sure, is it good to go? Is it divert? I mean, what are you guys worried about as we flip that switch on Saturday morning?
I'll start and just say my biggest concern is that our drivers are not prepared and that they're going to experience long call wait times at our customer service center, long lineups at the walk-in centers. We are open Saturday, Sunday, and Monday being a holiday. We're still going to be open, so we want to be as available. We have retail outlets for people to get those passes, but we want people to be prepared now and not wait. It just makes it easier for them and anybody else.
I really want to echo that. I think I'm not worried because I know that SDOT and WSDOT and King County Metro Sound Transit, we're all ready. But the travel decisions of 400,000 people every single day are going to really impact how well this goes. And so like Patty, I just really hope that people are paying attention, that they have their good to go pass purchased, activated, and installed. And that folks continue to use the tunnel because it really still is the best way through downtown Seattle.
So there was a question that came in and it said, I got my sticker, my good to go sticker. What do you mean I have to put money on there? They thought that the sticker meant that there was already money on there. You actually have to activate the thing and put money into that. Now, if I remember reading correctly, you want to go ahead and prepay like $30, if that's correct.
Right. If you don't already have a good to go account, you can go online and open a good to go account. You put $30 on it, and then you can register that pass on your account. Then install it in the windshield, and then you're good to go.
So then if you essentially buy 2 good to go sticker passes, you can merge those together to come out of one collective fund, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. All you have is one account. You can have up to 6 passes or vehicles on your account. Otherwise, beyond that, you go into a fleet account, and that's getting into the details. And you don't even need to have a pass. If you just put your license plate on your account, it's an extra 25 cents. But if that works for you, that's an option.
I want to go back to our transit folks just on your concerns, because the one thing we talked about, and you kind of hit on it a little bit, Katie, is the newbies. You don't want to be riding a Metro bus or a Sound Transit train for the first time next Tuesday morning,
No.
that first morning real commute after the Veterans Day holiday. What's your advice to those people who are like, oh yeah, I think I'll take a bus today, of not having been prepared for that in any way, shape, or form? I mean, what should they do, a dry run over the weekend? What, tomorrow? What?
That's always a great idea. Try it out. We do want those people to be on transit on Tuesday morning. I think a couple things that you can think about if you're maybe considering getting ready, get an ORCA card. ORCA cards are preloaded fare media. You can add money. You can have a pass. You might already have one sitting in a drawer from your employer that you've never used. So you get an ORCA card or use it and be ready. It's always a good idea to look at where your stop's going to be, make sure you know where the bus is going to be on Monday morning, and you probably know somebody, you probably have a friend or a coworker who takes transit. I've even heard of people who sort of like buddy up for your first commute. Find somebody nearby who's going to be making that commute and go with you. But there's a lot of great resources out there if you are looking to try something for the first time, even on Tuesday morning.
So can you walk some people through how easy it is to get an ORCA card or a bus pass? Because there's still, some people just don't know how to do that.
Sure. It could be easier, but we have retail locations where you can get an ORCA card at any Link Light Rail station, any station in the downtown transit tunnel. There's machines, and you can buy an ORCA card there and preload it with a monthly pass, or just cash that would debit automatically, so you can get it on an ORCA card there. You can come to the Metro offices if you're a youth or a senior or a disabled person and get a pass there for a discounted rate as well. And we also have a low-income fare, so you can get an ORCA Lift Pass if you would qualify for that. So there's a variety of ways. We do have great employer partners who provide tons of ORCA passes out to their employees too. So that's a great way too. And you can add, once you have an ORCA card, you can add money online. with a credit card, or you can go to one of our stations with a machine and add it with cash.
Fantastic. So, David Jackson from Sound Transit, I have a text message at 98973 asking, what's Sound Transit going to do to beef up their text rider alerts, especially when it comes to South Line or North Line of Sounder trains? It seems like they're getting their alerts 20, 30 minutes behind.
We are working very hard to improve the lag time between when we know a train is going to be delayed and when I get a text alert. I subscribe to the text alerts, and I also receive the internal organizational notice of a delayed train. They're generally pretty close together. But one thing we need to remember is that Sounder trains run on BNSF tracks. And so those trains are dispatched out of Fort Worth, Texas, including ours. So sometimes, because of that logistics, is going to be difficult. But we're working on it. We want to make it better.
I've noticed that this year, or actually I would say this spring, we had less cancellations on North Line Sounder trains, even though we had our fair share of some pretty wet weather. You guys made some adjustments to make sure that you wouldn't have to cancel trains because of slides.
There has been some work on that corridor to reduce the incidence of slides, yes.
Okay. Sully?
I was going to ask you, coming in from the south end, I know we have a lot of listeners who come in from the south end early, and they're always asking me, there always seem to be so many mechanicals on that sounder in the morning. Put that in perspective. It's probably not any more or less than ever. It's just frustrating when it happens to you and you're on your train, you're like, I'm sitting in Lakewood, and I'm not going anywhere. Have you guys had any more issues with mechanical this year, or is it about par for the course?
I'm not aware of any increase in incidence of mechanical problems, but when it's your train, yeah, it matters. And we're focused on our customers, and we try to make it better.
I guess I should add that Sound Transit is putting out Sounder trains for the Sounders match on a Sunday, too. So you can ride the train if you are headed to the match on a Sunday. So let's wrap things up as we get closer to the end of our town hall. So tolling starts in the Highway 99 tunnel on Saturday morning at 5 a.m., and drivers are going to notice a bigger difference, especially when you're going to see an easier drive into the tunnel, probably more traffic onto some of the surface streets and onto I-5. So again, State Patrol is working with our agencies to make sure everything kind of moves smoothly. Do you think this weekend we're going to have drivers kind of test things out so come Tuesday morning they're ready to go when it comes to tolling and transit? And
I hope
traffic?
so.
Okay.
I hope so. I think it's always a good idea when we have a new facility to use to test it out, and test out your transit trip, test out the new tolled facility. It would be a shame if everyone were driving through the tunnel for the very first time on Tuesday morning. So we do hope that folks prepare and make sure they understand where they're going, and pick the right route and right mode.
Yeah, I think people will try something different. And I think the nice thing is Saturday, lighter day. Sunday, of course, we got the Sounders match, but I think people will still try different things, hopefully more on the transit side. And then Monday being kind of a half commute, I think we'll definitely see traffic will be lighter, but some trying out of new pathways. And then Tuesday morning is going to be the big moment to see how much people are adjusting.
I find, I use the tunnel 4 times a day, and I know I say this over and over and over again. I can't even begin to tell you how efficient that is. That saves me getting in and out of downtown essentially 15 minutes every single day. And I don't mind paying that $1.25 or whatever I have to do if that means saving me 15 minutes and actually getting to work on time instead of being 45 minutes late. Just saying, because sometimes on I-5, that's what you run into. We have one more question before we wrap things up. So one from Stephanie on YouTube. She says, we need more Sounder departure and arrivals. So Sound Transit, do you renegotiate with BNSF on that?
Short answer, yes. We, as part of Sound Transit 3 that was passed a couple years ago, increased Sounder service to the south as part of that package.
Okay.
We're working on it.
Fantastic. All right, Sully, you want to wrap with anything?
I think what we've found out is you guys are ready. You guys are prepared. The biggest issue is going to be you guys. You're the X factor. What are the drivers going to do? And we won't really know until a couple of days of dry runs, or a couple of months, or how much until we shake out, if 520 was any indicator of what we dealt with. So, yeah, make your plans and plan ahead, because this is really up to you guys. Be prepared, get your pass ready to go, and then have a plan, have a backup plan, because you don't want Heather's finger on that button.
Nope.
That we talked about earlier. Actually, I'm just glad you are ready to roll if things are ready to go. I think they're ready to go, and let's get after it.
So that will wrap things up for the second KIRO Traffic Town Hall. On behalf of Sully and myself, we are dedicated to make sure you get through change and transition as easy as possible. He'll be watching you in the morning. I'll make sure that you're taken care of every afternoon from 3 to 7 on the Candy, Mike, and Todd show. Again, thank you to all of our panelists, Katie from King County Metro, Rick from Washington State Patrol, Patty from WSDOT, David from Sound Transit, and Heather Marks from Seattle DOT. On behalf of myself, Sully, and our panelists, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the radio.